see you. Welcome to the Center for Global Development at 10, CGD at 10, Prosperity Policy Breakfast, multilateral institutions in a G20 world. It's a mouthful, but this is a big issue. I'm Nancy Birdsall. I think I know all of you, most of you, if not all of you. And it is really a pleasure to see you all. This is the start of our celebration of our 10th anniversary. Tonight, we will have a special Embassy Row event. I want to start by thanking the sponsors of our day, the Oppenheimers, De Beers, Chevron, and the Pan-African Capital Group. The celebration tonight is sold out. We're very pleased about that, but that's to make sure that those of you who haven't got tickets realize it's too late. I'm sorry. So we're embarking on a discussion now that I think marks a profound change in the world that's important for the center and important for all of us. It's amazing to me the changes in the world that have taken place in the last 10 years. First, we have the rise of the emerging markets, the rise of Asia, and the creation of the G20. And second, we have the increasing sense that many of the problems in the world that we face as a community, as a global community, are transnational. They cross borders. They're in the category of what economists call global public goods, sometimes global public bads. Those are two big changes in the world. And today what we want to talk about is how those changes may or may not affect our global financial institutions, principally the World Bank and the other multilateral banks and the International Monetary Fund, and to some extent the United Nations in relation to those financial institutions. And we have an incredible group of people here to have that discussion. I'm going to introduce them now. Then they'll make some remarks. We'll have a little bit of conversation up here. I'll try to generate some controversy. We'll see. And then we'll turn to all of you for your questions and comments. So let me start with Kamal Darvas. All of you know him, I suspect. You have the bios of these people, so I won't give you too much elaboration. But I do want to say that Kamal, of course, he's the Vice President and Director of Global Economy and Development at the Brookings Institution, former World Bank, head of the United Nations Development Program, the author of one of CGD's wonderful books, A Better Globalization, Legitimacy, Governance, and Reform. Kamal was a visiting fellow at the Center for Global Development. And I didn't say, of course, that he's one of the great former finance ministers who took his country successfully through an economic and financial crisis. So welcome, Kamal. Next to Kamal is Antoinette E Toe, who is the director of the African Department at the International Monetary Fund. But for those of you who know the center's involvement in the last decade in Liberia, the important thing also about Antoinette is that she is the former finance minister of Liberia, serving under President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. We met in Liberia for the first time. I think many of you had known her long before that. She's now, in addition to being at the IMF and in addition to having been finance minister at Liberia, she spent many years at the World Bank. So it's a wonderful person to have thinking about the global financial institutions. Then we have, next to Antoinette, President, the Honorable Ernesto Zedillo, former President of Mexico, Director of the Yale Center for the Study of Globalization. I always think of President Zedillo in a very special way. He is, in my view, the person who gets the credit for the transition in Mexico, for the democratic transition in Mexico. I sometimes think of him as, I don't know if it's quite the right analogy, the Gorbachev of Mexico. I'm not sure he likes that. Not in every respect.
You said you were going to be controversial.
She's trying to praise me, but she's worrying me.
I won't tell the story about our youthful days together, Ernesto.
Don't be indiscreet, okay?
The President Zedillo is now the chairman of the board of the Global Development Network. It's just one of the many things he does to serve the research and development community. And he was, which is very apt for this session, the chair or co-chair of the International Task Force on Global Public Goods. The task force report is called Meeting Global Challenges, International Cooperation in the National Interest, and it was finished in 2006, perhaps a little ahead of its time. I don't know. Because to some extent the world is only catching up to the points you were making then. And then, of course, next to me is another former president, Jim Wolfensohn. He's now chairman of Citigroup International Advisory Board, advisor to Citigroup City Management, and chair of Wolfensohn and Company. And the most important thing for me personally about Jim is that he was present at the launch of the center. I think it's probably true for both of us. It's hard to imagine that it was almost 10 years ago. And at the launch, Jim made a statement that the chairman of our board, Ed Scott, always recalls to me. He said something along the lines of, I know you'll be giving me lots of advice. You'll be watching and giving me lots of advice. So with that, let me turn first to Kamal to make some very brief remarks, anything you want. We'll do that for each of you, and then we'll have a chat.